Shuffle all of your ability cards back into your ability draw pile. Yeah, it's a little confusing, actually. I do think I'm supposed to keep my discard pile separate, but okay. So next, defeated by the Hornsaw. With you out of the way, the Hornsaw returns to its original target. Your intervention lasted just long enough for more security to arrive, though. A squad of skeletal soldiers marches into the room and, despite heavy losses, eventually puts the Hornsaw down. My thanks, strangers, the necromancer says as he gets up and regains his composure. It seems I owe you my life. He directs the guards to begin cleaning up the mess left behind by the battle, especially the valuable bones and Hornsaw corpse, then motions for you to follow him into the adjoining study. May we speak? The Thunal, the necromancer, thank you for meeting with me, he begins. My name is Thunal, head reanimator here at the guild. He walks around the elegantly carved table that dominates the center of his study and takes a seat in a plush, velvet-lined armchair. Right on cue, a skeleton draped in black robes glides into the room and places a serving dish on the table, handing out teacups and filling them from a porcelain pitcher. I haven't seen a Hornsaw in decades, and I must admit that was my first encounter with a hag. No doubt you have questions, and I assure you they'll receive answers as best as I can give. But I would ask that you remain once you're satisfied and listen to a proposal I have for you. What would you like to know? Well, let's hear about hags. From what I've heard, women deeply scorned or exiled from their communities can fall victim to a malady that twists them into these horrible abominations. It's truly unfortunate if you ask me, as it's far beyond a simple perversion by titanic influence, as is the case with the Hornsaws. He stirs his tea as he thinks, no, this is far worse, because the root of their transformation is us, our relationships and traditions. We claim that they were poisoned by the lingering essence of the fallen titans, but it was wrongdoing by people that set them on the path to becoming hags in the first place. What would you like to know? Let's hear about Hornsaws. They were once noble creatures called unicorns, peaceful and benevolent animals dedicated to protecting the wilds. Of course, in the wake of the Titans, all things are affected. Thunal raises his eyebrows as he swirls the aromatic drink in his cup. You saw for yourself. These perversions are mere shadows of what they once were. Vicious, bloodthirsty monsters. I've been thinking about how she was able to get it into the city, and I must admit, I was startled by how easy it was. A simple illusion could disguise a Hornsaw as a horse, and masking its life force is a simple matter for any accomplished spellcaster. What you're left with is something that, for all intents and purposes, is a dead horse. Exactly what she was contracted to bring into the city. Bypassing our wards and defenses was easy under that ruse. Ask why she wanted to kill him. He sighs, pausing to sip his tea. That is the question I was dreading. The woman you knew and the monstrosity you encountered here were both lies. There is no such person as Yera, I'm afraid. She has had a true name once, but out of respect I'll not use it here. I only recognized her by her voice today. He stares out the window and the rooftops of the city baking in their brief exposure to the noonday sun. She was lovely when I knew her all those years ago. she was a keen wit, too. We'd while away the hours debating any topic. We argued or fought, I would always apologize. But then my apprenticeship to the guild was approved, and I had to leave. She begged me to stay with her, to live a simple life and raise a family. She made me choose.
Thunal frowns, the memories clearly causing him some discomfort.
I wasn't kind to her when I left. You must understand, I thought it would be for best if she moved on. I tried to break things off as quickly as I could. I didn't want her to waste any time lamenting my absence.
He stares into his teacup.
I suppose this all leads back to me, doesn't it?
Don't ask any more questions. The necromancers offer.
If I've satisfied your curiosity, would you humor me and listen to my proposal?
He sets his teacup down and leans forward.
I'm guessing you were working for Yara when you knew her as a caravan master. That means she not only escaped capture, but avoided having to pay you as well, correct? Well, then it seems like our objectives coincide. I'd like you to track down Yara for me. Before you ask, I already know where she's going. After retrieving her horse from the bone market, she headed deep into the Ukrudan Desert to the west. Unfortunately, my divination spell had but a limited range, and I lost sight of her after a few miles. I'll outfit you with reanimated horses to make your journey a bit easier, but it will be up to you to track her down and find her. When you do, I'd like for you to give her something. Specifically, I need you to physically put it into her hand.
The ritual. Thunal rises from his seat and retrieves a ritual book from a nearby shelf. He takes a moment to select the proper gemstone from an array of stones of different shapes and sizes on the table, then peers at it in the light streaming from the window.
Yes, this is the one. A proper soulstone. Again, you must make sure this touches her, alive or dead.
He begins chanting, his eyes clenched shut. The hair on your neck stands up as dark energy swirls about the room, causing the gemstone to glow, even as the color drains from his face. Just before completing the spell, he turns to you.
Tell her this is my death's kiss. She'll understand.
And with that, he utters the final word. The soul stone flashes with a sickly ruby glow, and the necromancer collapses, letting it tumble from his lifeless hand. Whoa! You're tentative at first, unsure if the soul stone is safe to pick up, but it proves harmless to you. The room darkens as the sun passes beyond the ridge of the volcano above. Preparing for the desert. Several skeletal servants shuffle into the room shortly thereafter, while two of them carefully lift Thunal's body and carry it off. One of them beckons for you to follow it back to the main entrance. With one bony finger, it points to a group of dead horses standing nearby, already saddled and ready to head out into the desert. Do you want to do anything in Hollowfaust before you set out? Leave immediately, giving Yara less time to prepare? Gather resources for the journey into the desert? Try to figure out where Yara might be heading. Let's gather resources. That seems smart. It would be unwise to venture into the desert without proper supplies. You stop off at a market to load up on food, water, and everything else you'll need for a lengthy journey. Once your packs are laden with gear, you head for the gates, gallop down the slopes of the volcano, and take the first westbound road you come across towards the Ukrudan Desert. Into the Ukrudan Desert. Not far from the base of the volcano, the terrain rapidly deteriorates into the dry scrubland. That only lasts for a few more miles before it's overwhelmed by rolling drifts of pure golden sand. The temperature soars. As you crest the highest dune in the area, the scale of the Ukradan Desert becomes apparent. Stretching out as far as you can see in all directions is a hopeless sea of sun-scorched wasteland. Off in the distance to the north, you spot a roiling sandstorm making its way across the horizon. Perhaps it's just the natural weather for the season, but it could be a flock of sand wyverns on the hunt. You make a note to keep an eye on the storm just in case it abruptly heads your way. In the meantime, you've got a hag to follow, and horses, living or dead, don't leave tracks for long in the shifting sands. Navigating the dunes. After a few hours heading due west, you come across a stone marker jutting up from the dunes. It's ancient and illegible, having been battered by the elements for years. But off in the distance you spot another. They're obviously part of some larger navigational network, though you've got no idea where they lead. In a different direction, you see a few desperate palm trees arching over a shimmering oasis. The splash of a green undergrowth against the coarse sandscape is a welcome sight. Even if a Yara didn't go in that direction, stopping there to refresh yourself and refill your canteens would be a welcome reprieve from the unrelenting heat. There's also a series of rocky spires a way off, too far to make out any details. In an ocean of sand, formations like these serve as unmoving islands, one of the few places that can consistently be located by traditional navigation. The spires reach into the cloudless sky, drawing short shadows across the dunes under the midday sun. Then again, if you spend a few hours searching the area, there's a slim chance of finding some of Yara's tracks in the low points between the sand dunes. The wind whips across their crust, but if she made her way between the hills, there's a slim chance some remnant of her passing could still be there. Follow the stone markers, head towards the oasis, make for the rocky spire, or look for Yara's tracks in the sand. I am going to gamble and make for the rocky spire. The rocky spire. You head toward the spire, ignoring all other distractions. With its commanding view of the desert in all directions, it's the best place to keep a lookout for pursuers. It's also bound to be cooler than the scorching dunes, protected from the sandstorms, and safe from most of the creatures that roam the desert. If you needed a hideout in a desert, that's where you'd go. It stands to reason that that is Yara's plan too. You pull a wrap across your face to protect you from the heat and sand as you begin crossing. The Tuath Warband. As you near the spire, the terrain around you grows rockier, steeper, and offers more concealment. While that could work to your advantage, right now it's working against you. With a deep, throaty shout, several figures rise up from behind the nearby boulders. Their humanoid bodies and horse-like heads reveal them to be Tuath, a brutal, warlike people. They don't immediately attack, which puzzles you at first, until a leader steps out from among them. With a look of anger and disgust, he points at your horses with his wicked bone spear. It doesn't require translation to understand that these horse people consider your undead mounts abominations. They seem to be demanding you give them up to be destroyed. It's a reasonable decision, considering the horses aren't exactly going to suffer. On the other hand, making your way back out of the desert on foot once your task is complete will be much more difficult. Give up your dead horses to be destroyed. Try to negotiate with the Tuath. Maybe they'll offer some supplies in exchange, or try to flee. Let's give up the horses. It seems super appropriate. Death to the dead horses. You slowly dismount to avoid provoking the Tuath further. True to their intentions, the warriors ignore you as they lead the undead horses a short distance away, then smash them to pieces. When the task is complete, the warband's leader turns back to you and raises both hands in some sort of salute. The other Sutak nod their heads in silence. Then the whole warband marches off over the dunes and out of sight. Getting out of the desert is going to be much more difficult now, but in the meantime, you've still got a job to do. The rocky spire is still a good distance away, and the only thing worse than the heat during the day is the predators that come out at night. Base of the spire. A few hours later, the soft sand under your feet gives way to the solid ground. You rejoice as though you're stepping onto the shore after months at sea. As you run your hands across the vertical surface, you're surprised to find a small hole, one of many leading up the side. Someone hammered pitons into the solid rock here, and not long ago, judging by the accumulated pebbles and debris all around. Yara is up there. She has to be. All adventurers roll to climb the spire, adding +1 for each melee card they have. Okay, so we only have one character with melee. 1, 2, so 2. Okay, so each character rolls. So we're going to roll. Uh, 12 and a 6, 6, 7, 8. No. Some players rolled 12 or higher. Each adventurer who failed suffers 2 points of damage. Oh, you know what? I was never told to heal up. I don't think, but maybe that was with the reshuffle. Maybe I missed that. I don't remember it saying to heal up. We're going to put the horn saw back in the pile. So Manticora Hunter is going to take 2 hit points of damage. The climb was easier for some of you than others, and despite several tumbles back down the unforgiving spire, the first of you to reach the top finds a coil of rope to drop down and helps everyone else up. Top the spire. There's just enough room on the small plateau on one side of the spire for a small camp, where you see a group of unredeemed Asathi warriors huddled around a fire, cooking what looks like tiny lizards impaled on sticks. Behind them, a huge hag steps out from under a shady outcropping. A wicked smile crosses her lips as Yara addresses you.
I was hoping you'd follow me, she begins ominously. It will be much easier to attribute your death to the merciless desert instead of my hand. Do you have any final words before my faithful servants toss your corpses back down the spire?
Attack her before she can cast a spell on you, too. Talk to Yara and get her side of the story. Try to trick Yara into accepting the Soul Stone. I'm going to talk to Yara and get her side of the story. Her side of the story.
What? You came all this way just to ask me what was happened?
On the verge of erupting into an angry outburst, she catches herself right at the precipice.
Fine.
Nodding her fingers together, she takes a few heavy steps forward.
You should know that I have just enough patience left to endure your questioning for a while. What do you want to know?
Ask why she tried to kill Thunal.
I should have known that rat wouldn't have told the truth. Thunal is an unrepentant liar. Did he tell you he abandoned me? That he left me to study at the guild? She grinds her teeth and hisses, I think not. No, he probably didn't mention any of that.
Tell her that's no excuse for trying to kill her. Tell her that he told you it was a tough decision. Yes, we'll do that.
A tough decision? She balks. A pathetic excuse for a man.
Even as she speaks, you can see the fury in her eyes begin slowly replaced by a lament.
He was so cold to me when he left, nothing like what he once was. I thought his heart had already been consumed by the dark arts he's begun to practice.
Agree that he probably succumbed to the dark arts. Remind her that she had a choice too. She could have moved on. No. We're not going to taunt her. Agree that he had probably succumbed to the dark arts. She shakes her head.
No, that doesn't matter. He was kind-hearted and gentle once when we were young. Even if a shadow had fallen over his soul, I would have stayed with him anyway. I knew you'd never be able to understand, she said darkly. You know you're a lot like Thunal, making poor decisions and running afoul of dangerous women. She waves to the Asathi and spurs them to action. Your master calls, my slaves. Kill them!
At her command, the unredeemed Slytherin warriors lurch forward and attack. She has them under some sort of mind control spell. Oh my god. What?